Okay.
Hi, this is Mimi.
And this is Lee, and you're listening to Getting Rich After Divorce. And today, on this episode of Getting Rich After Divorce, we're going to be talking to my friend Sukhwant Shimkaveg, and she's going to help us understand the Kolbe Cognitive Style Assessment Test and the results. So if you don't know what it is, you're going to be learning, and you're going to be learning about how it can help you in your business. So I don't know, Sukhwant, would you like to just briefly introduce yourself and say whatever?
Sure. First, thank you, Lee and Mimi, for having me here. I'm so happy to be here. I am Sukhwant Shimkaveg. I'm a master life coach. I have a business. I run my own business called Rumline Life Coaching, and I'm also a Kolbe consultant. I love everything Kolbe, and so I'm happy to be here and just talk your ears off about it today. I have a little bit of a frog in my throat, so excuse me if I have to stop and get some water every once in a while. So I'll just go ahead and just tell you a little bit about a Kolbe. So taking the Kolbe A Index, and most people are introduced to Kolbe by taking the index, helps you to identify your natural instincts, basically how you get things done. And so we want to learn how we get things done so we can learn how to leverage this information in ways that we can make life-changing decisions, or just any life-changing, make a difference in our own personal world. And these changes have helped me to reduce stress, increase my productivity, and just basically enhance my fulfillment in my work and in my personal relationships.
Ooh, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
I mean, those are benefits anybody would want, right? And I just want to clarify. So the Kolbe Index, it's a quiz that you can take online, and we will have the link to it below. And then to get your results, it's a really nominal fee, I think, for the amount of information that's provided.
Yeah, and it doesn't take a super long time to go through it, because Mimi was new to it and took it. It seemed like it was 20-30 minutes, so it's not like a big time suck or anything. And like she said, the investment of time and money it seems worth it, especially when you get someone like Sukhwant explaining it to you and how to use it. So did you want, we interrupted you. Do you want to say more about?
Yeah, it's 36 questions, and just like Mimi said, not in a quiz like you get anything wrong or right. Basically, they're asking you questions like, how would you do something? Would you do it this way or this way? You're most likely to do something this way or least likely to do something this way. So they're trying to assess your instinct, your natural ability. So and you're right, Lee, it takes about 20 to 30 minutes. And the information you can glean about yourself is amazing.
So when somebody goes at this quiz, they should not be going at it like there's a perfect score type that I want to achieve, and so I'm going to guess what the right answer is. You really want to think about what your natural tendency is when you're.
Yeah, that's right, Lee. So when you go in, and I always tell clients, is when you're taking the assessment, before you read each question, ask yourself this: if free to be myself, right? Mm-hmm. Not thinking about how your spouse wants you to do it, or your coworker, or whoever's voice is in your head trying to influence you. Like, if you're just being you, free to be yourself, how do I really want to do it?
How do I want to do it? I love that.
Just, putting yourself in that space. I advise my clients to sit down and get themselves into that space, and then go ahead and take the assessment.
Nice. That's really good advice. So there are four, when you get your results, it's in four numbers. And would you explain a little bit about these four numbers and the types that they indicate? So
Sure.
people understand if they take it and they get the results, what is that? What is that?
Right. It's a very colorful report. So Kathy Kolbe, who is the designer of the Kolbe A Index and all the other indexes in her portfolio, her research reveals that there are four primary instincts that all of us humans have. The first instinct is the instinct to probe, that is to research and gather information. And she calls this fact finder, right? So when you receive your index, your report after you take the assessment, it's the first red column. So that is the index, that is the instinct to probe. The second instinct that all of us humans have is the instinct to organize, to design and organize our world. And she calls this follow through. The third, that's the blue column that you'll see. The third instinct that we all have is the instinct to improvise. And that is how we deal with risk and uncertainty. She calls that quick start, and that's the green column. And then the fourth one is our instinct to construct, using our hands and how we handle space and tangibles. And this is called implementer, and that's the gold or yellow column. So all of us, every single one of us, has a little bit or a lot of some of these strengths, right? And so do you want me to go on a little bit more about how she divides them up?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, let's go ahead and dig into the division of the types and say more.
Yeah, so we all have these strengths. These are universal strengths to all humans. So each column, so I'll just use fact finders as an example. If it's on a continuum, and she uses 1 through 10. Now, there's no difference there's no 1 is not less than 10. It's just how we can make sense of the difference in this particular column.
It may be helpful just as a reference point to explain to people to know that I'm a 3. So It sounds like a low number, right?
Yes.
And Mimi's a 7. So on that first column for implementer, is that what it's called? Fact finder, sorry. I'm a 3 and Mimi's a 7. So you could probably
that's perfect because I'm a 6.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. So she divides them into 3 zones. So the first zone is 1 to 3. So that's where what your instinct to gather information is like, you're like, I don't need a lot of information. Okay. You're the kind of person that likes to simplify. You have a lot of information. You're like, okay, just give me the important parts. Okay. What's the gist of the story? What's the gist of this research module? So that's 1 to 3. And 3 to 6, and I'm a 6, you know what, I'm going to skip. I'm going to go to 7 to 10 first, because that's the other side of the spectrum. The people who love to gather information and dive deep into the details. Okay, you're raising your hand, Mimi.
Yes, Mimi over there.
Resonates with you, right? It resonates with you. Yes. So that's on the other end of the spectrum. Not better or worse than the people who like to simplify. You kind of need both, right? And I'm right in the middle. I'm a 6. So people in the 6, which is people who are in the middle zone, that action mode is called, it's called a zone of operation, excuse me, is explain. So I'm the bridge between Mimi and Lee, right? Lee's like, okay, Mimi did all this research. How do I, and I'll explain it to you. Okay, this is what she means. I think this is what she means. So we're the bridges, we accommodate, we explain, we review, we edit. So that's kind of, and each of the action modes, the fact finder, the follow through, the quick start, and the implementer all have the 3 zones, right? The 7 to 10 is where you initiate, meaning that is your to go action mode. For Mimi, it's your to go action mode. When you start doing a project or any particular task, you will go do that first.
That is so true.
Yeah.
That is very true. So if we go to the next column, and again, I think it's helpful to hear our scores so people can kind of see the range.
Yeah.
I'm yet again a 3. And what, Mimi, what are you?
I'm a 5.
And a 5.
3 and a 5. Yeah, you're in different zones. So follow through it is our instinct to organize, design and organize our space. So this is great. We really do this well. Mimi, you are in the 1 to Lee, you are in the 1 to 3 zone. You're a 3. So you like to create shortcuts, right?
Absolutely.
Create shortcuts, revise, you're flexible. You can do many things at one time, right? Multitasking. You can loosen up a rigid process. And I'm going to go to me next, which is, excuse me.
Yes, take some water if you need it. Well, I'll drink too.
7 to 10. So this is my to go action mode, which is I like to create plans and more plans and a backup plan. And I'm meticulous with the planning. So people can depend on me to start something, do all the planning and finish it.
Yeah.
One thing about systematizers is they are good at closure.
Yeah.
And the people in the middle, Mimi, you're a 5. So you maintain. So you can package things together. You can take the best of my plans and you can kind of rig it to make it more efficient because I might be stuck in the weeds somewhere. Again, people in the middle are really good at communicating with the extremes. I mean, I don't want to say extremes, but the people who are really engrossed in creating plans and the people who are creating the shortcuts. And you kind of need both when you're, especially on complex systems, you need both energies. So this is another example of why it's not good to say that the lower number is less than, because it really is important, especially on teams, to have different kinds of energy and different abilities.
Yeah, I mean, just by way of example, in my corporate job, that I'm no longer there, but in my corporate job, that's exactly how I behaved in meetings. When there was a complex issue, I'm like, let's just get to the root of, let's just simplify this. Let's get to the root of it. Let's not get too involved. And so sometimes it's good as a balancing agent, but I also was so appreciative of the people who thought it through more carefully, because that was always enlightening to me, just the way they would think it through. I respected it, because that's not something I always do.
Yeah. So Mimi, how do you resonate with that? Or
I mean, absolutely. I can see that I'm neither one of those people, right? Like I like a plan, but I like to get a plan and then get into action on it. But it's interesting because I was like in the fact finder, I did like gather all the information, but then it sounds like when it comes down to like putting that into action and how we're going to do it, I was like, okay, yep, I've got my plan and here it is. And I want to stick with it. Like, since that's like maintaining, is it? Is it
Yeah.
like- yeah, so once you've done all
Oh,
of
yeah,
this
that's-
research
yeah.
and, you're trying to find shortcuts, I'm like, let's just get this plan put together that we can function with and that works and keep moving, and let's use it and move forward.
That is literally what she will say in a business meeting. Like, let's just do a plan and stick with it, Lee. Stick with it, Lee. Because, we do have different styles there, because I like to go and be creative and think of all the different things. So you see it in our meetings. It's funny.
Yeah, it's like,
So, yeah, and people who initiate, so 7 to 10 zone is called the initiating zone.
Mhm.
As I mentioned earlier, is where we tend to begin the process of whatever we're doing. So, yeah.
can I just ask a quick question? Are we only gonna have one of these 4 characteristics when we're in the 7 to 10 zone?
I mean, it depends. There are people who have 3. It's rare. And there are people who have, I mean, it's rare. I have never seen anyone who initiates in all 4.
Yeah.
That would be a very, very difficult person to work with.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
difficult person to work with. They would not be a team player. You would not want to have someone like that on your team. Let them work independently
Yeah.
Yeah.
and help you out that way.
Mhm.
I could say that would be a very stagnating place, right? Like,
Yeah, I've never seen that. I'm sure maybe some other people have seen. I've seen a lot of people who initiated 2. That's common. That is
I
common.
just that because Lee and I both just had one that was up in that zone, and
Yeah.
I didn't know.
That's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of the ways our
I have also one, and I initiated one. And most people who initiate in one, yeah, unless all of their other numbers, yeah, you know what, we can talk about patterns later.
Okay, let's talk. Yeah, let's go to the next one. And I think, is the next one
Quick start.
quick start? Then I'm a 9. Just in,
All right, 9.
yeah.
I'm a 5 again. I'm right there in the middle.
Mhm.
And I'm a 6. So Mimi and I are in the same zone here. So quick starts that's the instinct to how we deal with risk and uncertainty. And the people 1 to 3 are the stabilizers. They're the ones who like to maintain the status quo, not rock the boat. How can we keep things safe? How can we protect what we already have? And Lee is an innovator. So that is called innovate. Coming up with lots of ideas, brainstorming, experimenting, starting something before it's finished and just putting it out there, ad-libbing, making presentations, doing this, just all sorts of ideas. And people in the middle, like you and I, Mimi, we modify. So we kind of let the innovators come up with their ideas and we'll go with it. We're not the person that's going to say, stop, I don't like it, it's not safe, what if this happens? We're like, yeah, we could do this. So we'll follow. We're good support for them. We're good to give feedback. We won't necessarily squash their ideas, but we will maybe help them to slow down a little bit, to think about some, what ifs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely how we operate, because I'm always running like 8 steps ahead, and Mimi's like, well, let's just think about this. Let's just think about this. What are the steps? And so that definitely shakes out in the way we work together.
One of the steps, and also like establishing deadlines because innovators can kind of like go off and keep going, and you need to help them with deadlines. Something that they can say, okay, I need to stop with the ideas and just move forward.
Yes.
Yeah. I think a lot of too, like in this space of like risk and uncertainty, I've always want to weigh it. Like, okay, I'm willing to take that risk, but what's the outcome that we want? Like, what's going to be the benefit of this risk instead of just rushing out to take it? Like, I'm game to give it a try, but I want to make sure that we're measuring it and that it's going to add value, and we're not just doing it because it's a great idea. So I can see like how that, I can see that so clearly.
Yeah, definitely. So I hope it's helpful to listeners to hear how we're giving you our scores and talking about the reality, how it sits in our actual business and in our business meetings, the way we operate together, because it's so far, Sukhwant is just so on the nose. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I love about Kolbe, because people can see themselves in it almost pretty much immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think these things that you thought maybe were a weakness, you can see how when they play with everything else, it's like, oh, I can really, own this as a strength instead of like, it just is who I am. It's, it really isn't like, oh, this is why am I that way or why am I this way? It's like, this is why I'm behaving this way. Like, this is my style of action.
Exactly.
And it's almost comforting.
It's comforting. It is. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. and that's how you should feel. And I don't want to use should. That's feel like it's freeing.
Yeah.
Able to be yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So the last one is implementor.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's what you were talking about, the number, like I'm a 3 in that. So like my first thing was like, oh, I failed that one. Like, like that was my first instinct. That's why it's so great to have you here and talking about, 1 to 10 is just to set the range, like in our mind of how we typically rate things on a score of 1 to 10. We assume that the low number means something not as good, like typically, like, do you like it or do you don't like it? It's like, you tend to not like a 1, but it's like, nope. Okay. 3 is just how I am as an implementer.
Right. And I'm so you're 3 and implementer, I'm 4. And
I'm a 2.
Okay.
We're close by.
We're all right here.
Implementer is how our instinct to construct, to actually use our hands and build things. So us, Mimi, you and I are envisioners. We are good at coming up with ideas and seeing it and putting an idea together, mapping it out. And then the people who are initiating implementers will build it. They will actually go out and build it. People like Mimi, who's right in the middle, accommodating, they're good at restoring things. So I don't like to bring IKEA furniture home, and I can do it. So I'm gonna back up a little bit. We are capable of doing every single thing, all these 12 different modes. Mm-hmm. It's just that when we are working outside of our MO, we can experience frustration and fatigue and irritability and less productivity, right? Increased stress when we're working outside our zone. So me trying to put an IKEA whatever together is, I can do it, but I'm gonna hate it the whole way through. I'm just not gonna, it'll take me 3 times as long. My husband, who is an initiating implementer, meaning this is his thing. He'll just look at something, build it, no instructions, and figure it out. He just loves being there.
Yeah.
So
that's so funny. Like me to put something like that together, I have laid out all of the plans where it says I should have 6 of something. I've got them all neatly lined up because it's mentally very challenging. Like in my mind, I always want to think I can do it.
Yeah.
But when it comes to it, like I have to plan it out and go. So it takes me forever.
It's interesting because I can see it using the IKEA furniture idea. I really see where because this one kind of confused me, but with that's such a good example because I will halfway lay it out because I'm like, I kind of see where we're going here. I see it and I have confidence I can do it. but I'm in that middle bridge territory where, I mean, sometimes I think, well, maybe it was better if I'd planned it out a little more carefully, or sometimes I can just kind of pull it all together, being a little more, I don't know, what does the middle mean for that? Like, how would someone behave in the middle?
It's somebody who's able to restore, like you're not averse to getting your hands dirty and not dirty, but building something or working with tools. You'll test things. You'll take our ideas, Mimi's and our ideas, and you'll be like, okay, let me try and put something together. Or we might be like, yeah, go for it. Right? So you're not full into doing the whole thing, but you'll test it out.
That makes sense. That really resonates. That's a great way to teach that one, I think.
So I just have a quick question. Are there times in your life when you might score differently? I'm thinking specifically of the ones that are that quick start in dealing with risk. You know, the women that we're speaking to are divorced women. And so, you know, as you come out of a divorce, everything feels super scary. So if you were before you initiated as a high quick start, if you're at a place in your life where everything feels sort of rocky, would you change that? Or you're still going to be, you know, a high initiator? Like, does it change when the situation in your life changes?
Okay, so there's two parts to the answer
Okay.
to this question. One is that the statistics have shown that in over 90% of the cases, where people have taken their Kolbes after 20 years, well, I'm sorry, 90% of their numbers have not changed. So this is a natural instinct. And it's with you pretty much your whole life. Now, that you can get something which is called a transition result, and I can talk about that a little later. But I want to get back to the second part of this, is that one of the things that Kathy Kolbe talks about is the 3 parts of the mind, and it's in the report that you received. There's the cognitive part of the mind that is our skill, our intelligence, like what do we know, right? The things that we learn, our education, our intelligence. These things are measured by assessment tests. These are things that can change because we can go to school and learn more, or we can get a stroke and forget everything, right? They're like, it can change. And those are things that you can and cannot do. The second part of the mind is the affective part of the mind. And the affect part of the mind deals with personality, motivation, behavior, beliefs, and values. So when you take like a Myers-Briggs or a DISC assessment or a Sparketype or an Enneagram, those are all personality. What do I want? What do I like? Right? And the cognitive and affective areas can change with circumstances in your life. The cognitive is more, the cognitive is more predictive. It's not so affected by the circumstances in your life. So, and all 3 parts of the mind work together. So when I'm doing a Kolbe consultation, it always includes coaching, because I'm trying to find out, is the area of frustration that you're experiencing right now, is it really cognitive or is it affective? Is this something in your life that's been affected by circumstance and affecting what you like to do or how you are? So, and then if it is, then you coach on that, right? Yeah. If it's not really, then you can look more deeply into the Kolbe and see how you can maybe change the way you do a few things to give more room to being more of yourself, bringing more of your MO into your life.
So it's like this insert certain situations. What you're trying to do is lean into what Kolbe has said is natural for you, as opposed to fighting it to help you maneuver through that situation.
when you're going through a tough time in your life, like a divorce or anything, it will suppress your natural instinct because you're experiencing all these affective issues. Maybe you're a little depressed or you're experiencing grief, right? And so what will happen is you might take a Kolbe A Index assessment and get something called the transition result. And instead of getting a number, you'll get an X. It means you were contradicting yourself too many. You said you wanted to gather information, and then you also said you don't care about information.
Mm.
So that means you're dealing with a lot of internal stuff, or there's a lot of external pressure on you to behave, to be somebody you're not.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really clear. I can see.
Wow. That's so interesting. Thank you for explaining the parts of the brain too, and how they're not all the same, and how this test, it really works with one. And what did you call the part of the brain that the Kolbe test works with?
Cognitive.
Cognitive. So it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the doing, it's the action,
Mm-hmm.
how we take action.
So one of our questions was on a team, or maybe it could be from like the provider of a service or the giver of a product, the seller of a product to the customer, or on a team, like a working team. Is it better to be more similar in nature, or better to be opposite, or what? Maybe it's not either or.
Yeah, that's a good question. So it depends. What is the goal of the team? Like, what is the goal? Like, are you trying to produce something to appeal to a general audience? Are you trying to improve on what you're already working on? Is this an engineering thing? Generally, for executive teams, you want to have hybrids where there are as many of the strengths available, right? If there are too many people who are initiating fact finders like Mimi, and I have worked on an executive team exactly like that, there's inertia.
Yes, I have worked on those teams. Yeah.
Cognitive cloning. And it's just and you have to make hard recommendations, like you need more people with different strengths here, right? And then that's kind of tough.
Yeah.
So you want to have a balance. So ideally, if you're working on a team, you kind of want to have from the 1 to 3, like 25% representation from the 1 to 3 zone, 50% representation from the 4 to 6, and then another 25 from the 7 to 10.
Oh,
you don't want too many initiators, because they're just going to be, I'm going this way, I'm going that way, I'm going this way. So having more of the people in the middle actually makes for stronger teams. So
really cool.
Yeah.
This is just an off question. In looking at all of the Kolbe results that you've seen, do women score in certain areas? Like, do you see based on gender anything, or does it?
That is an excellent question. And that is one of the reasons why I love Kolbe so much, is because it is an unbiased assessment.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the questions that will make you, that is biased against gender, age, or race.
Yeah.
Because
if you had asked me, the one that was the implementer handling space and constructing, I would think, oh, would more men score higher in that? But now that you make that comment, when I look back on the questions, it didn't say, do you like to use a hammer or a drill,
Yeah, I have a couple of actually more than a couple, a few women who are initiating implementers. And by the way, there is a cultural bias that we expect men
Yeah.
to be able to handle tools. And
Yeah.
the men have been taught to handle tools. I wonder if I took Kolbe of like half the military, whether they would actually be able to,
Yeah.
they're probably not all implementers. They're
Yeah.
just trained. Like anybody can be trained to do something. Doesn't mean that we're happy doing it.
Yes. I totally
Like,
get it.
Yeah, that's such a, and this is where I think this test can be so helpful in honoring wherever you are. Like whatever you are is what you are, and it's good. And you just learn how to lean into it and feel okay about where you are, because I definitely know men who they're like, I'm just not very good at fixing things. And you can tell they feel like I should be, I should be that initiator, implementer, or whatever.
Yeah.
And as a woman, I know in team settings where I've been around a lot of men, the fact that I'm such just a 9, what's the name of the green column?
Fixer.
Yeah, that isn't, I sometimes, well, not sometimes, often have felt like I have to tone that down. That I have to be careful with that one, and I have to, and so, parts of my brain, not all my brain, will say, you shouldn't be that way. You're too much, you're too this. And, now it's liberating to know, like, this is just the way I am. And you do have to be diplomatic on teams if you're all, if you're kind of leaning far to one side of one. There is such a thing as diplomacy, but not to feel bad about where you are, or not to judge someone else who's totally the opposite. Or
Yeah.
seemingly totally the opposite.
That's why it's so good for team members to do the Kolbe, because then you can sit down and have a session just on Kolbe and talk about what you like to do. So one of the things that I recommend to clients is start to, well, learn how to speak your MO using terms like, I need to do a lot of research before I can talk to you about this thing. I need at least 2 hours. Let people know how you work. Or I perform best when. Or I'll be most successful if you don't interrupt me. So for me, as an initiating follow through, I really don't do well with interruptions. And I never understood that until I did Kolbe. And I was like, that's why, because people come in, interrupt me, and it takes me a long time to return back to focus. Whereas my husband he can be distracted and come right back to a really highly focused project. Learning how to explain your strengths to people and what you need. Use this as a tool to help you speak your own truth to others.
Yeah, I love that. Sukhwant, this has just been amazing. Do you have any?
Really fascinating.
We could just keep asking questions. Do you have anything else?
I think that's I mean, I could sit here and ask questions
right.
forever, but we appreciate your time, and we
might need a part 2 at some point.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, we may need a part 2. But tell people again where they can find you and maybe work with you if they take this and want to understand it better.
Yeah, so you can, my website is rumline-lifecoaching.com. Rumline is spelled RHUMBLINE-lifecoaching.com. Just click on there, shoot me an email. My email is also on my website, Sukhwant, that's a little harder to spell, SUKHWANT @rumline-lifecoaching.com. And just shoot me an email. Let me know if you want me to help you understand your Kolbe MO a little more, and happy to be there for you. And
and we'll put your info in the comments and description so they can, just click over on a link. But just in case that's problematic, you've got her telling you how to reach her. And we'll have also any downloads from us, you could always find in the description area below or in the comments, and let us know, give us feedback. Was this helpful? Tell us, any questions. If you want Sukhwant to come back for a part 2, what would we ask her? So let us know what you want. I would love to hear your impressions and your feedback. So thank you, everybody. And thank you, Sukhwant. This was just wonderful.
Fascinating. Yeah, thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed it
Yeah.
as much as we did. Just loved it.
All right. Bye.